this thing of a trade war. They've been in a trade war with us for 25 or 30 years. But we're at war with China. Ray Dalio, he tweeted it the other day. We're at war with China. There's three types of war. The Chinese look at it: information war, economic war, and guns up, kinetic war. They're been at economic war with us for 25 years. No great power in world history has ever looked away of their greatest threat and at the same time dissipated its energy on something. We spent $7 trillion. Brown University, the Watson Center, shown we spent $7 trillion in 17 years on this war on terror and the war in the Middle East, right, with very bad outcomes. And we've allowed the rise of China. In fact, many people in this room, the elites of our country, have exacerbated the rise of China. And we were told time and time again until Donald Trump got here that it was the inexorable rise of China. It was the second law of thermodynamics. This was a law of physics in the natural world. In fact, the whole Thucydides trap concept that Kissinger, these guys came up with, is based on the rising power and declining power. We're the declining power. That's the same theory they had before Ronald Reagan got here in the 1970s, that Russia and the Soviet Union was on the rise and we were on decline. That was what détente was about. That was what all the arms agreements were about. Ronald Reagan changed that and said, we can defeat these guys. We can bring this down. And it was supposed to be 40 years. It happened in 8 or 10 years. Same thing with Donald Trump. And he's mocked and ridiculed of not being some foreign policy expert. He's got enough understanding of the world and the way the world works to go after this. And quite frankly, we're winning. They talk about the Chinese haven't come back to us with a response in the trade thing. For the first time in the last 25 years, they don't know what to do. They're seeing an opponent that's standing up for themselves. It's not just the trade. The trade it's the scale and depth of the trade. In the way Trump proposes, he says it's 50, it's 200, it's supposed to be 100, it's 200, and it's another 200 if you retaliate. And by the way, if you even retaliate again, it may be another 500. You know, he's talking about right now $500 billion. That's just one. The 301s is what Silicon Valley came to us about. It's not the technology theft. It's the forced technology transfers. The third part's the ZTE, where we can basically implode these companies. The last
I'm trying to game this out. So
here's the game. Right now, we're converging on a point, and they understand this. We could take the whole thing down. We could take the whole thing's built on a house of sand.
What if they sell our treasuries? What if they devalue their currency?
They devalue their currency. They're just going to flood more dollars out. They got $3 trillion of reserves, and trust me, in the New York second, that thing would flood out of the country in a second. That's what their own people think about their economy. We've allowed these guys to push us around. We've allowed these guys to take the South China Sea. When I was 22 years old as an ensign, JG in the Navy, it's central of the South China Sea to be free and open navigation. The Bush administration and the Obama administration looked the other day when they militarized it. It was Donald Trump that said.
I hear all that, but I want to talk about where the trade war is going.
Well, I don't. By the way, I think right now.
How does it end?
I think.
So you heard the previous panel,
How
right?
it ends is in victory. How it ends is in victory. Donald Trump is not going to back off this. The Chinese are going to blink right now.
What is victory?
Victory is when they give us full access to their markets. Victory is when they stop. Remember, the warlordism in China right now, and Xi is under, I think, tremendous pressure, is the state-owned industries. Remember, China, Made in China 2025, they told us it was to leapfrog us and to converge on advanced chip design, robotics, and artificial intelligence, to converge eventually with genetics, to converge on advanced manufacturing. What the reality is we saw in GTE is to get off the West supply chains for
ZTE.
ZTE. Get off ZTE was to get off the West supply chain for components. I think the number one thing you're going to see out of the trade war is the reorientation of the complete supply chain of Japan, Western Europe, in the United States, and Southeast Asia, that 800 million people, even before you get to India, okay, around the freedom-loving countries. I think the regime in China is in deep trouble. Remember, this is different than the Chinese people. The Chinese people are some of the hardest working and best people in the world. It's this regime that has led them down this path, and it's this cult of personality around Xi that tried to get up in the United States' face. This trade war is going to end in victory, and what you're going to see is a reorientation of the entire supply chain out of China.
We discuss it in far simpler terms on CNBC frequently. It's when it's all said and done, are there going to be fewer tariffs in the world? Is China going to be more open, or is it going to be less open?
Let's go back to the G7 for a second. It's just not tariffs. It's other. G7 on the first day he got lit up, right? Lit up by everybody. The worst guy in the world. They're bending over the thing. Next morning he walks in there. He says, "Hey, I got an idea. How about this idea? How about no tariffs? No tariffs whatsoever. We all trade reciprocity, no tariffs."
Yeah, Larry Kudlow brought that up this morning.
Hold on. But no subsidies. Macron didn't know what to do. Couldn't get out of his seat. Look. The whole scam is their state-owned industries. Brexit and 2016 are inextricably linked. What links them is China. It's China's exporting its deflation and Chinese exporting its excess capacity that has gutted the Midland heartlands of England, obviously through Germany, and gutted the upper Midwest of the United States. If you go out to the Midwest and you give them a fire-breathing speech on China, you don't have to get them up to speed like you do the elites in New York. They understand it. J.D. Vance, who wrote Hillbilly Elegies, reminded me that these studies from MIT and Harvard showed there's a direct correlation between the factories that went overseas, the billets and jobs that went with them, and the opioid crisis. Remember, tariffs are not just about economics, and they're just not about manufacturing jobs. It is about self-worth and identity and people understanding they have jobs, okay? This is bringing these manufacturing jobs back.
So tariffs are good for the economy?
100% good for the economy. Great for the economy.